This episode is brought to you by the Vertigo Center, helping you find balance when the world won't stop spinning. So, if you or a loved one are struggling with dizziness, vertigo, or imbalance, please visit thevertigocenter.com to take your first step towards steady living. Welcome back to the You Can't Fool You podcast. Today's episode is just going to be me, and we'll get back to having guests on next week. But in this episode, I want to talk to you about something that is super foundational, something that quietly controls almost everything in your life: how you think, how you feel, how you react, and what you believe is possible. And you might be surprised, it's not your goals, it's not your habits, it's not your attitude, but it's your paradigm. And if we don't learn to understand it, if we don't learn to shift it, we end up living lives built on other people's maps and not our own. And I feel like we lose our power when we do that, when we're living based off of other people's maps, other people's paradigms, the way other people view the world. And in this episode, I want to address some some technique and strategies on how to change that. So first, what is a paradigm? And a paradigm is a framework or understanding of reality, and it's the way of seeing the world. It's not just like a visual sense, but it's how we perceive, understand, and interpret the world around us. It's the mental lens that we use to interpret everything. It's invisible, but it dictates your reality because we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So think of it like wearing tinted lenses. You don't notice the lens, but everything you see is colored by it. And the metaphor that is used in the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People that I love, and this is an amazing book that I recommend everybody to read, is imagine we're in Philadelphia. So imagine you're in Philadelphia and you're trying to find City Hall, and you pull out a map and you start walking, but something feels off. You just keep getting lost. You're frustrated, maybe even questioning your own sense of direction. And then you ask someone for help, and they're looking at the map and they're like, "You're holding a map of Chicago." So it doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how positive your attitude is. The map is wrong. You're not going to get to where you want to go. And that's what paradigms are. There are mental maps. If the map is inaccurate, your behavior, no matter how determined you are, you're not going to get the result you want. And where where can these paradigms and these maps come from? And it kind of just goes. It starts with our conditioning. And Robin Sharma is someone I really love. Has a framework called PENM, and I think it's brilliant. And it stands for P, which is parents. And so, you know, what did your parents model for you growing up? What did they teach you about money, relationships, success, failure, winning, losing? They're our earliest teachers. So that's the P. The E stands for environment, and that's where did you grow up? What was normal in the parts that you grew up in for the people around you? N is nation. That could be from what state, what country you're from, what cultural values did you absorb without even knowing it. A is associations. This is who you spend time with, your friends, coaches, mentors, people in the neighborhood, what were their values like? And lastly, M for media, it's what kind of content are you consuming as a kid, a teenager now? All of these things build the lens that we see through. And it starts to program our subconscious, and it tells you what's realistic, what's right, what's possible. And the wild thing about all this is that a lot of times most people they never question how they view the world and why that might be. And I believe that the only way to really grow, to truly grow, is to have the ability to shift your paradigms. And I want to give you a story from the book that the author uses. And there's a guy, he gets on the subway, and he has two kids. The two kids get on, and they're running wild. They're screaming, climbing all over people. They're causing a bunch of chaos, and he does nothing. And the people around him are getting frustrated. They're judging him, and so finally, someone goes up and says, "Sir, can you control your kids?" And he replies and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. We just left the hospital. Their mother just passed away. I don't think they know how to handle it, and I don't either." And just like that, your paradigm changes. How you saw him as careless, even lazy, now you see him as someone who's grieving. And so the facts of the matter didn't change. The kids were still out of control, and he wasn't doing anything. But your lens on how you viewed the situations did change. And an example that I used in real life with some kids is, you know, I was training a kid one time, and was just talking to him, and I looked at him. I said, put your glasses on, bro. Like, change how you're showing up, change how you're choosing to show up, and trying to explain to him what a paradigm was and how that can change the way you view a situation. I used the logo for the Green Bay Packers, and there's a bunch of other teams that have that logo, and so you could see how this changes what you think about certain situations. So the Green Bay Packers, what do you think of? You think of Lambeau Field, you think of Cheeseheads, the NFL, Vince Lombardi, Super Bowls. And that's one way of viewing that logo. But then you have the University of Georgia. They also have the same logo. It's just a different color. You have UGA, the mascot. It's college football, down south, SEC, between the hedges. You have Grambling University, who also uses the same logo. They're an HBCU, the world famous Tiger marching band. Different way of viewing the logo, different meaning. And then you also have Bishop Gorman, which is a high school out in Nevada. So you think of the desert, you think of Las Vegas, you think of high school football. And just by changing the color, the lens that you're viewing it from, the colors are different. The paradigm, the story then becomes different. And so what's with our paradigms, we generally have a certain center in which we start to view these things from. And so in Seven Habits, Stephen Covey, the author, says that we all operate from a certain center, and ideally we want to be able to operate from a principled center. But we're all humans, and we do tend to bias towards certain centers, and that's a place where we see the world from. And so for some people it's family, other people it's money centered, work, pleasure, possessions, and even people are centered around their enemies. Some people are spouse centered or self centered. But the problem with that is, if your center gets shaken, then your whole world gets shaken. If your identity is centered around work or school for kids or sports for kids, then all your decisions are made with those glasses on. And an example, let's just use work centered people. They can become workaholics. They drive themselves to produce at the expense of their health, their relationships, and other important areas of your life. And their work then becomes their identity, right? Who are you? Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a finance person, I'm a teacher. And for kids, that example could transition over into sports or school. And kids also do the same things. I've had these conversations with some kids, and how their center is just through sports. So maybe they're just a lacrosse player or a football player, and they sacrifice other important areas of their life and development. It could be other friendships. They're not spending enough time with their friends because all they're worried about, getting better at this, and this. They're not having as much fun, and missing out on what it means to just be a kid. And another interesting one, center, that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to is around possession centeredness. And that could be with material possessions, and those things are tangible, but also intangible possessions like fame, glory, or social prominence. And I'm going to read it from the book, what he says about what he says about possession centeredness. And I think this is really impactful. And it goes, if my sense of security lies in my reputation or the things that I have, my life will be in a constant state of threat and jeopardy that these possessions may be lost or stolen or devalued. If I'm in the presence of someone of greater net worth or fame or status, I feel inferior. If I'm in the presence of someone of lesser net worth or fame or status, I feel superior. My sense of self worth constantly fluctuates. I don't have any sense of constancy or anchorage or persistent selfhood. I'm constantly trying to protect and ensure my assets, properties, securities, positions, or reputation. We have all heard of stories of people committing suicide after losing their fortunes, insignificant stock decline, or fame, or in a political reversal. And I think that's leads to a paradigm. It's just saying that comparison is the thief of joy. So possession centeredness, I think, is a huge one where we can kind of see how having these certain centers, how it can be more anchoring to have a principled center in our self worth. And so the question becomes something to reflect on. What are you centered on, and what would it look like for you to be principle centered, anchored in these timeless truths and purpose and values? And the first thing I think of is like the pyramid of success, and what the cornerstones of those are is industriousness. It's just like hard work and enthusiasm and friendship. And so having those principled centers is a great way to have that foundation, so that way we don't become centered on just one thing. And so I want to talk about a few tools on how to practice paradigm shifting. And this is the start. I think this is where a lot of the growth begins. So a few tools. One, I would say reflect, take time to, the three S's: silence, stillness, and solitude. Take time to reflect, take inventory. Reflect back on, where do your beliefs come from? Are they helping you? Are they hurting you? And don't be afraid to challenge those assumptions, and don't be afraid to let them go if they're not serving you. Just because something feels normal doesn't mean that it's right or that it's useful. Ask yourself, is this belief serving me in the life that I want, and how I show up, and is it in alignment with what I believe? Another way to start that is to expose yourself into new environments, new people, new cultures, new experiences. This can help break your mental models faster than anything, because it's real-time feedback that everything's not how you view it. And again, of course, I'm always going to say journal your patterns. Journal, journal, journal. Journal your experiences, journal your thoughts. When do you react out of fear, act out of pride, out of insecurity? What bothers you? What makes you feel uncomfortable? Those things are generally your mental maps, your paradigms at work. And to also know that you have the power to choose the lens that you decide to view it from. It's not about faking it. It's about updating your maps to reflect the reality that you want to live in. And so that's the biggest thing to take away is we are totally in control of how we decide to choose and view the lens that we look from. We are in total control over that. And so paradigms can be super powerful. They're quiet, they are invisible, but once you start to notice them and you have control over them, you have your power. You're not giving your power away to somebody else or some other sort of center. And that's where everything can start to change. And that's where, if you want to grow and really grow, I think that's the best place to start. Best place to start. So we don't just want to fix our habits. We don't just want to set better goals. We want to be able to change our lens, so that way we can change ourselves and continue to grow. Because at the end of the day, you can't fool you. So thanks for listening. If this hits home, send me a message, share it with a friend, and let me know what's one paradigm you're working on shifting right now. And next week we'll get back to having some guests on the show.